I was standing in my kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon when my daughter-in-law demanded $15,000 for a birthday party. When I calmly said no, Brittany's hand flew across my face with such force that I stumbled backward, catching myself on the counter. My son Trevor appeared in the doorway. I waited for him to defend me. Instead, he pointed toward the stairs and said the words that shattered everything. "Pack your bags and get out of my house." Brittany smirked. "And we're draining your account tomorrow." I smiled. I'd been expecting this. My cheek was still stinging as I steadied myself against the granite countertop. The kitchen, where I'd made countless family dinners, suddenly felt like enemy territory. Trevor stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, refusing to meet my eyes. Brittany positioned herself next to him, triumphant, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her designer purse. I touched my face gently, feeling the heat radiating from where she'd struck me. In all my 67 years, no one had ever raised a hand to me. Not my late husband, not strangers, nobody. And here was this woman, married to my son for barely 3 years, assaulting me in what she thought was her own home. I took a slow breath and looked directly at Trevor. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "This house, Trevor. Tell me again whose name is on the deed." Trevor shifted his weight from one foot to the other. His jaw tightened the way it used to when he was a boy, caught in a lie. "Mine. Dad left it to me when he died." I nodded slowly, deliberately. "That's what you think, isn't it?" Brittany's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I walked to my purse on the kitchen table, moving carefully, aware they were both watching me like I might be dangerous. From the side pocket, I pulled out a legal document I'd been carrying for 3 weeks now. Ever since I'd noticed the way Brittany looked at me during Sunday dinner, calculating, cold. Ever since I'd overheard her telling Trevor that his mother had lived in this house long enough, I unfolded the deed and placed it on the kitchen table between us. "Trevor, do you remember 3 years ago, right after your father died? You came to me crying, said you were in trouble, deep trouble." His face went pale. "Mom, don't. You'd been gambling. Online poker, sports betting, whatever you could find. You owed money to some very dangerous people. They were threatening to take everything. Your car, your credit, this house that your father had worked his whole life to pay off. That's ancient history," Trevor muttered. "Ancient history that I saved you from. I had this house transferred into my name to protect it from your creditors. You signed papers. Remember those papers, sweetheart? You thought they were temporary. You thought you were signing something to help consolidate your debts." I watched his face as the memory returned. The papers I'd brought to him at his office, the ones he'd signed quickly, barely reading, desperate to fix his mess. But those papers did something else entirely. They transferred full ownership of this house to me. Not temporarily. Permanently, to keep the creditors from seizing it when they came after you. "You're lying," Brittany hissed. She snatched the deed from the table, her eyes scanning the legal language. Her perfectly made-up face went from golden tan to ash gray in seconds. "The house has been in my name for 3 years. Legally, completely, irrevocably mine." Trevor grabbed the deed from Brittany's shaking hands. He read it once, twice, 3 times. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "So when you tell me to get out of my house," I said quietly, "I think you have it backwards. You want me out? Fine, I'll go. But you two are the ones who need to pack. You have 30 days to vacate my property." The silence that followed was magnificent. I'd imagined this moment for weeks, ever since I'd realized where things were heading. Brittany's escalating demands for money, her barely concealed contempt, the way Trevor had started treating me like a burden instead of his mother. I'd known a confrontation was coming. I just needed to wait for them to make the first move. Brittany's face transformed. The sweet, innocent mask she wore for church and neighbors melted away, revealing something ugly underneath. "You manipulative old witch. You can't do this." "I already have. My lawyer has the eviction notice prepared. You have 30 days. Trevor found his voice. "Mom, please, we can work this out. We don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought of that before your wife put her hands on me. I picked up my purse and grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door. I'll be staying with Dorothy for a while. When I come back to collect more of my things, I expect you both to be civil. And Brittany, if you ever touch me again, I'll have you arrested for assault. I walked toward the front door, my head high, my hands only shaking a little. Behind me, I heard Brittany explode. She started screaming obscenities, her voice shrill and desperate. Trevor tried to calm her down, but she was beyond reason. I didn't look back. I grabbed an overnight bag from the hall closet, the one I'd already packed 2 days ago when I'd sensed this was coming. I walked out my front door into the afternoon sunshine and got into my old Honda Civic. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw them through the kitchen window. Trevor had his head in his hands. Brittany was pacing, gesturing wildly, her face twisted with rage. But I also saw something else. Something that should have warned me. The way Brittany suddenly stopped pacing and went still. The way she pulled out her phone. The cold, calculating smile that spread across her face. I drove to Dorothy's house 3 miles away, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Victory, power, control. I'd stood up to them. I'd protected what was mine. I thought the worst was over. I had no idea the real war was just beginning. Dorothy welcomed me with open arms and chamomile tea. She set me up in her guest bedroom, the one with the faded floral wallpaper and the view of her garden. For 2 days, I felt something close to peace. I met with a lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who nodded approvingly when I showed her the deed and told her what had happened. "We'll file the formal eviction notice tomorrow," Patricia said. "Given the assault, we might be able to expedite it. You did the right thing, documenting everything." I slept better those 2 nights than I had in months. No more walking on eggshells. No more enduring Brittany's barely concealed contempt, or Trevor's guilty avoidance. I even started making plans. Maybe I'd downsize after they left, travel a little. My husband and I had always talked about seeing the Grand Canyon. Maybe it was time. On the 3rd morning, my phone rang. The number was from First National Bank. "Mrs. Harrison? This is Daniel Chen calling from Account Services. I'm afraid there's been a problem with your accounts." My chest tightened. "What kind of problem?" "Your accounts have been frozen pending an investigation. We received notification from Adult Protective Services that there are concerns about your mental competency and ability to manage your finances." The room tilted. "What? That's absurd. Who made this report?" "I'm not at liberty to say, but APS has opened a case file. Until they complete their investigation and psychiatric evaluation, we're legally required to freeze your accounts." "I'm very sorry, Mrs. Harrison." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, trying to process what I'd just heard. Adult Protective Services. Mental competency. Psychiatric evaluation. The words felt like they belonged to someone else's nightmare, not my life. Dorothy found me sitting on her guest bed, trembling. "Ina, honey, what's wrong?" Before I could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Through the window, I saw Trevor's car in the driveway. Dorothy went to answer, and I heard voices, then footsteps on the stairs. Trevor appeared in the doorway, and he wasn't alone. A woman in her 40s with a clipboard stood beside him, wearing a concerned expression and a county ID badge. "Mom, this is Sarah. She's from Adult Protective Services. She just needs to ask you a few questions." I looked at my son, really looked at him. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. But there was something else there too. Something that looked like guilt and determination mixed together. "Trevor, what have you done?" The caseworker stepped forward. "Mrs. Harrison, I'm Sarah Mitchell from APS. We received a report of concern about your welfare. I just need to conduct a brief interview." "A report from whom?" "I'm not at liberty to disclose that information at this time. But I knew. Of course I knew. Brittany had made her countermove." Over the next hour, Sarah asked me questions. Was I taking my medications correctly? Had I been forgetting appointments? Was I having trouble managing my bills? The questions felt like traps, each one designed to make me sound confused or incompetent. I tried to explain what was really happening, that this was retaliation, that Brittany was manipulating the system to get back at me for standing up to her. But even as I said it, I could hear how it sounded. Paranoid, defensive, exactly what someone with declining mental capacity might say. Trevor sat in the corner, his head down, occasionally interjecting. "She's been so confused lately. She accused Brittany of hitting her, but that never happened. She fell at Dorothy's house and got that bruise. She keeps insisting the house is hers, but Dad left it to me. I have his will to prove it. She's misremembering, getting dates mixed up." "That's not true," I said, my voice rising. "Trevor, you know that's not true. You were there. You signed the papers." "Mom, I never signed any papers giving you the house. You're confused." The caseworker made notes. Trevor pulled out documents. His father's will, clearly stating the house was left to Trevor. Somehow, he'd made my protective transfer of the deed look like a delusion on my part. "Mrs. Harrison," Sarah said gently, "I understand this is difficult, but given the concerns raised and what I'm observing, I'm recommending a full psychiatric evaluation. Your bank accounts will remain frozen until we can establish that you're capable of managing your finances safely." After they left, I sat in Dorothy's living room, shaking. Dorothy brought me tea, but I couldn't drink it. My hands were trembling too hard. "Ina, surely there's been a mistake. You're the most capable person I know." But doubt had crept into even her voice. I could hear it. That tiny question. What if there was something wrong with me? What if I was confused? The seed Brittany had planted was already growing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I realized the brilliance of Brittany's strategy. Every attempt I made to defend myself would look like more evidence of paranoia. Every time I insisted I was right, I'd sound more delusional. She'd turned my own competency into a weapon against me. And my bank accounts were frozen. I had maybe $200 in cash. No way to hire a better lawyer. No way to fight back effectively. Brittany hadn't just attacked me. She'd cut off my resources to defend myself. I lay in the dark, listening to Dorothy's house settle around me, and felt the first real stirrings of fear. Not just anger or frustration, but genuine terror. If this narrative took hold, if people believed I was mentally declining, Trevor could get guardianship. He could control everything. My home, my money, my medical decisions, my entire life. And I'd be powerless to stop it. The psychiatric evaluation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Patricia, my lawyer, called with bad news. "Mrs. Harrison, I need payment for my retainer to continue representation. With your accounts frozen, I can't proceed." I scraped together my last cash and paid her what I could, but it wasn't enough. She agreed to one more consultation, then I'd be on my own. The evaluation itself was humiliating. A psychiatrist named Dr. Williams asked me hundreds of questions in a sterile office that smelled like industrial cleaner. I tried to stay calm, to answer everything clearly and competently. But when I brought out the deed to prove I'd been telling the truth about the house, his expression changed. "Mrs. Harrison, why were you carrying this document in your purse?" "Because I knew Trevor would challenge me. I needed proof." He made a note. "But carrying legal documents with you at all times, being hypervigilant about proving your claims, that can sometimes indicate paranoid thinking." "I'm not paranoid. I'm being careful. There's a difference." "Of course." He didn't sound convinced. Later that week, Dr. Williams called with his preliminary findings. He couldn't definitively say I had dementia, but he had concerns. My defensiveness, my insistence that family members were conspiring against me, my preparedness with documents all suggested possible cognitive decline or paranoid ideation. He recommended further evaluation and suggested I might benefit from family counseling and possibly assisted living where I'd have more support. The word spread through my church like wildfire. Brittany made sure of it. She posted on social media about how difficult it was to watch a loved one struggle with aging. She asked for prayers. She painted herself as the devoted daughter-in-law, trying desperately to help her confused mother-in-law, who refused assistance. When I went to church that Sunday, people looked at me with pity. They spoke to me slowly, carefully, like I might shatter. Pastor Douglas pulled me aside. "Ina, if you need anything, we're here for you. These changes can be frightening, but you're not alone." "I'm not sick," I said. "This is a manipulation. Brittany is lying." But saying it out loud, in the church basement, made me sound exactly like what they thought I was. A confused elderly woman, unable to accept her own decline. The worst came when Dorothy's daughter called her. I only heard Dorothy's side of the conversation, but it was enough. "Yes, she's staying here. No, I don't think she's dangerous, but Brittany did mention concerns. I'm keeping an eye on her. Of course I'll call if I notice anything worrying." After Dorothy hung up, she couldn't meet my eyes. "Ina, honey, maybe you should consider that there might be something to what they're saying. Sometimes we're the last ones to notice changes in ourselves." "Dorothy, you've known me for 20 years. Do I seem mentally incompetent to you?" She hesitated. That hesitation broke my heart. "No, but stress can do strange things. Maybe you should let Trevor help you. Work this out as a family." That night, Dorothy told me gently that I needed to find somewhere else to stay. Her daughter had warned her that she could be accused of enabling my confusion, of preventing me from getting the help I needed. Dorothy was 73. She couldn't risk getting involved in something this messy. I understood. But it didn't make it hurt less. With my last $150, I checked into a motel off Highway 41, the Restful Inn, though there was nothing restful about it. Thin walls, cigarette smell embedded in the carpet, and a view of the parking lot. I lay on the lumpy bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. I tried calling my other son, Marcus. He lived in Arizona with his wife and 2 kids. We talked maybe once a month. When I explained what was happening, there was a long pause. "Mom, Trevor called me last week. He said you weren't doing well, that you're refusing help." "Marcus, I'm not sick. Brittany is lying. She's trying to steal my house." Another pause. "Mom, maybe you should just work with Trevor on this. He loves you. He's just worried." Even my own son, 2,000 miles away, half believed I was losing my mind. But that phone call created its own disaster. Within hours, Brittany called Marcus's wife. I found out later what she said. "I'm so worried about Ina. Has she been asking you for money? We think she might try to manipulate other family members now that we're trying to get her help." Brittany was systematically isolating me, turning everyone against me, making sure I had nowhere to run and no one to turn to. 2 weeks into living at the motel, I was skipping meals to conserve money. I'd lost 8 pounds. I wasn't sleeping. The stress was written all over my face in new lines and gray pallor, which, of course, made me look exactly like someone in mental decline. Then the papers arrived. Hand-delivered by a process server who found me at the motel. Trevor had filed for emergency guardianship. The petition claimed I was homeless, unable to care for myself, a danger to my own welfare. He included photos of the motel, statements from church members about my paranoid claims, and Dr. Williams' report about his concerns. The hearing was scheduled in 5 days. I called Patricia, but she couldn't take the case without payment. I tried the public defender's office, but they didn't handle guardianship cases. I was going to have to represent myself in court against Trevor's lawyer. In desperation, I decided to gather evidence. I went back to my neighborhood, knocked on doors, tried to explain to my neighbors what was really happening. Maybe someone had seen Brittany's true nature. Maybe someone would help, but the neighbors were uncomfortable. They made excuses, closed doors quickly. One elderly man, Mr. Patterson from across the street, did talk to me, but then he called Trevor afterward. "Your mother came by. She seemed disoriented, was talking about conspiracies. I think she needs help." More ammunition for Trevor's case. That night, the stress and poor nutrition and lack of sleep caught up with me. I felt a tightness in my chest while walking to the motel vending machine. The parking lot spun. I collapsed against someone's car, gasping. A motel guest called 911. The paramedics arrived and took me to the hospital. The ER doctor said I'd had a minor cardiac event brought on by extreme stress. My blood pressure was dangerously high. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Trevor and Brittany showed up within an hour. Someone from the hospital must have called them as my emergency contacts. They spoke to the doctors privately while I lay in the hospital bed, too weak and defeated to protest. Afterward, a nurse told me what they'd said. That I'd been under severe stress because I was struggling with reality. That my mental state had deteriorated. That I needed family support and supervision. The doctors, seeing an elderly woman who'd literally collapsed from stress, took them seriously. When they discharged me, they strongly recommended I accept my family's help, that I consider assisted living, that I not try to manage things alone anymore. I sat on the curb outside the hospital, my discharge papers in my lap, and had nowhere to go. The motel had been paid through tomorrow. After that, I didn't know. I had maybe $40 left. Brittany and Trevor drove past me in their BMW. Through the window, I saw Brittany smile. Not a fake smile for show, a real one. She was winning, and she knew it. For the first time since this nightmare began, I cried. Real, body-shaking sobs. I'd lost everything. My home, my money, my reputation, my relationships, my health. The court hearing was in 3 days, and I had no lawyer, no evidence that would convince anyone, and no strength left to fight. I'd never felt so alone in my entire life. The day before the court hearing, I forced myself out of the motel bed. My chest still ached from the cardiac event, but the hospital had given me medication and stern instructions to reduce stress. Reduce stress. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. I decided to attend church one last time. Maybe it was foolish, but I needed something. Prayer, community, strength, something to hold on to before I lost everything tomorrow. Pastor Douglas greeted me at the door with that same pitying look everyone gave me now. Ina, I'm glad you came. We've been praying for you. Inside, I saw familiar faces. People I'd known for years. People I'd served on committees with, brought casseroles to when they were sick, celebrated holidays with. They all wore the same expression. Concern mixed with discomfort. After the service, Pastor Douglas asked if I'd join him in his office. Of course, I said. But when I walked in, I wasn't alone with the pastor. Trevor and Brittany were there. So were 3 church elders and Dorothy. Even Mr. Patterson from across the street. My stomach dropped. Ina, please sit down, Pastor Douglas said gently. We asked you here because we care about you. We want to help. It was an intervention. They'd organized an intervention. For the next 30 minutes, people took turns speaking. Each one shared their concern. Dorothy talked about how I'd seemed stressed and defensive lately. Mr. Patterson mentioned my confused visit to his house. The church elders discussed my outburst about Brittany at Bible study 2 weeks ago. One by one, they painted a picture of someone in decline. Trevor played his part perfectly. He cried, real tears streaming down his face. Mom, I love you so much. I just want you to be safe, to be taken care of. Please, let us help you. Then I tried to defend myself. I explained about the slap, showing them the faded yellow-green bruise still visible on my cheek. Brittany hit me, right in my own kitchen. Trevor stood there and did nothing. Brittany's performance was worthy of an award. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice shook. This is exactly what we're talking about. These false memories. These accusations. Ina, I would never hurt you. I love you like my own mother. Trevor backed her up. Mom, you didn't get that bruise from Brittany. You fell at Dorothy's house. Remember? You tripped on the garden hose. I never fell at Dorothy's house. Dorothy looked uncomfortable. Ina, honey, you did seem a bit unsteady that day. The room closed in around me. They'd rewritten reality, and everyone believed their version instead of mine. I made the mistake of losing my composure. My voice rose. She's lying. Can't you see she's lying? She's manipulating all of you. She wants my house, my money, everything. This is all calculated. The more I protested, the more convinced they became. My anger looked like instability. My insistence looked like paranoia. Everything I said to defend myself became more evidence against me. Then Brittany played her trump card. She pulled out her phone. I know you're all concerned about Ina's accusations against me. I want you to see something. These are text messages she's been sending me. She read them aloud to the group. Messages I'd sent in desperation over the past 2 weeks, trying to confront Brittany, trying to make her stop. But stripped of context, read aloud in that church office, they sounded unhinged. I know what you're doing. You won't get away with this. The truth will come out. Everyone will see who you really are. Pastor Douglas shook his head sadly. Ina, these messages are concerning. The tone, the accusations. This isn't like you. Because I'm being systematically destroyed, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just sat there, feeling the walls close in. The intervention ended, with Pastor Douglas telling me they'd all be at the court hearing tomorrow to support the guardianship petition. For my own good. Because they loved me and wanted me taken care of. I walked out of that church knowing I'd lost. The entire community had been weaponized against me. Tomorrow, they'd all testify that I was mentally incompetent, confused, possibly dangerous to myself. And the judge would believe them. I got into my Honda and just drove. No destination. Just drove through streets I'd known for 30 years. Past my house where lights glowed in the windows. Past the grocery store where I'd shopped for decades. Past the park where I'd pushed Trevor on the swings when he was little. All of it was slipping away. By tomorrow afternoon, Trevor would be my legal guardian. He'd control my bank accounts, my medical decisions, where I lived, everything. Brittany would finally get what she wanted, and I'd spend the rest of my life in some facility, labeled mentally incompetent, with no one believing a word I said. I found myself on the highway, heading south, away from town. The gas tank was a quarter full. I had $23 in my wallet. I could just keep driving, disappear before the hearing, start over somewhere. But where? With no money, no resources? And running would just prove them right, prove I was unstable, unable to care for myself. Behind me, blue lights flashed. A police car was pulling me over. My heart hammered as I moved to the shoulder. I hadn't been speeding. What had I done? The officer approached my window. License and registration, please. Ma'am, are you aware you were weaving between lanes? I wasn't. I'd been so lost in thought, so distraught, I hadn't even noticed. The officer ran my license. Then he came back with a different expression. Mrs. Harrison, I received a wellness check request on you. Your son called, concerned about your mental state. He's worried you might harm yourself. I'm not going to harm myself. I'm just driving. Ma'am, given the circumstances and your son's concerns, I'm going to ask you to come with me to the hospital, just for an evaluation, to make sure you're safe. No, please. I have a court hearing tomorrow. I need to be there. We can talk about that at the hospital. Please step out of the vehicle. I was taken to the hospital in the back of a police car. Not arrested, but not free, either. At the ER, a psychiatric team evaluated me. A kind nurse asked if I was having thoughts of self-harm. No, I just needed to drive, to think. But my distress, my tears, my desperate situation all added up to one thing in their professional opinion. I was placed on a 48-hour involuntary psychiatric hold, which meant tomorrow, when the guardianship hearing happened, I'd be locked in the psychiatric ward, unable to attend, unable to defend myself. Brittany had thought of everything. I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the fluorescent lights, and felt something break inside me. Not my mind. My hope. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I believed I might actually lose everything. Tomorrow, Trevor would become my guardian. by default, without me there to contest it. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing, I could do to stop it. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I lay in the psychiatric ward bed, listening to the sounds of the hospital around me. Footsteps in the hallway, distant voices, the beep of monitors. Each sound felt like a countdown to my doom. The morning of the hearing arrived. A nurse brought me breakfast, but I couldn't eat. At 9 o'clock, the hearing would start. By 10, it would probably be over, and my life as I knew it would end. At 8:30, a different nurse appeared at my door. "Mrs. Harrison, you have a visitor." I wasn't expecting anyone. Who would visit me here? Dorothy had already chosen her side. Marcus was in Arizona. I had no one left. The visitor was a woman in her 30s, dressed in a sharp navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase. She walked with confidence and purpose. When she reached my bedside, she extended her hand. "Mrs. Harrison, my name is Amanda Price. I'm an attorney." I stared at her, confused. "I didn't hire a lawyer. I have no money." "I know, but someone who cares about you did." She set her briefcase on the chair and pulled out a file. "Dorothy's grandson, Justin. He's a paralegal at a firm downtown. He never believed Brittany's story. He's been investigating for the past 3 weeks. Justin. I barely knew him. He was Dorothy's grandson, visited her sometimes, seemed like a nice young man. Why would he help me?" Amanda smiled. "His grandmother loves you. He couldn't stand by and watch this happen. He contacted me because I specialize in elder abuse cases. I take some cases pro bono when the situation warrants it. And Mrs. Harrison, your situation definitely warrants it." She opened the file and spread documents across my bed. "I've spent the last week building your case, and what I've found is remarkable." The first document she showed me was a court record from another state, Texas, a guardianship case from 5 years ago. The plaintiff's name made my blood run cold. Brittany Ann Morrison. She'd been married before. "Your daughter-in-law has done this before," Amanda said. "She married a man named Gerald Morrison. He had an elderly mother, Patricia Morrison, who owned property. 6 months into the marriage, Brittany started the exact same pattern. Isolated the mother, claimed mental incompetence, pushed for guardianship. What happened? The case was settled out of court, records were sealed, but Justin found them. The settlement required Brittany to divorce Gerald and leave the state. Patricia Morrison retained her property and autonomy, but she paid a substantial sum to make it go away quietly. So, Brittany has done this before, to someone else's mother." Amanda nodded. "And there's more. She showed me another document. This is security footage from your neighbor's doorbell camera. The one 3 houses down. It captured the incident on your front porch." I looked at the timestamp. The day Brittany slapped me. The video showed everything. Brittany's hand striking my face. Me stumbling backward. Trevor standing there, doing nothing. Then pointing at me, his mouth moving with words the camera couldn't capture, but I remembered clearly. "Pack your bags and get out." Your neighbor didn't realize what he'd captured. Justin went door to door with a cover story, asking to review footage from that day, said there had been a theft in the neighborhood. When he found this, he made a copy. Evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. Amanda pulled out more documents. Statements from the motel manager where you've been staying. She says you've been completely coherent, polite, responsible. Paid on time, followed all rules. Nothing to suggest mental decline. Also, I had you evaluated by Dr. Rachel Foster. She's one of the best geriatric psychiatrists in the state. She reviewed Dr. Williams's report and disagrees completely with his assessment. She'll testify that you show no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. How did you arrange all this? The hearing is in 30 minutes. Amanda's smile widened. I filed an emergency motion yesterday afternoon to have you released from this psychiatric hold. The judge granted it an hour ago. You're free to leave immediately. And I'm representing you at the hearing. Justin's firm is backing me. We have a strong case, Mrs. Harrison. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. 20 minutes later, I was dressed and walking out of the hospital with Amanda. She'd brought me proper clothes, helped me freshen up. We drove to the courthouse in her car, going over our strategy. The courtroom was already filling when we arrived. I saw Trevor and Brittany sitting with their lawyer, a man in an expensive suit. I saw Pastor Douglas and the church elders, neighbors, Dorothy, looking uncomfortable, all of them there to testify about my supposed incompetence. When Brittany saw me walk in with Amanda, her face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock, then fury, then a forced calm. She leaned over and whispered urgently to Trevor. He looked up, saw me, and went pale. Their lawyer looked annoyed. He approached Amanda. I wasn't notified of new counsel. I filed my appearance at 8 this morning. All proper procedures followed. The judge entered. The Honorable Patricia Chen, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the case file, then looked up at the courtroom. This is a guardianship petition filed by Trevor Harrison regarding his mother, Ina Harrison. Mr. Harrison's attorney, please present your case. Trevor's lawyer stood. He called witnesses one by one. Pastor Douglas testified about my paranoid claims and erratic behavior. Church members spoke about my outbursts. Mr. Patterson described my confused visit to his house. Dorothy reluctantly testified that I'd seemed stressed and defensive. Each testimony painted the same picture. An elderly woman in decline, refusing help, making false accusations against her caring family. Then Trevor himself took the stand. His performance was practiced. He spoke about his fear for my safety, about my delusions regarding the house ownership, about my text messages and accusations against Brittany. He presented his father's will, showing the house was left to him. My heart sank. Even with Amanda beside me, the weight of testimony against me felt crushing. But then Amanda stood for cross-examination. Her voice was calm, precise, devastating. Pastor Douglas, when exactly did you personally witness Mrs. Harrison showing signs of confusion? Well, Trevor told me about several incidents. But you didn't witness them yourself? No, but I trust Trevor's account. Amanda moved to the next witness. Sir, when Mrs. Harrison came to your door, you said she seemed confused. What specifically did she say that indicated confusion? She was talking about some conspiracy, about her daughter-in-law lying about her. Did she seem oriented to time and place? Did she know where she was, who you were? Yes, but the things she was saying sounded paranoid. Or were they true, and you simply didn't believe her? Amanda let that hang in the air. She systematically dismantled each witness testimony, revealing they had no first-hand knowledge of cognitive decline. Everything was based on hearsay from Trevor and Brittany. Then Amanda called for a recess. She needed to present new evidence, and the judge needed time to review it. During the break, I sat with Amanda in a conference room. Brittany and Trevor were in another room with their lawyer, and I could hear raised voices through the walls. When court reconvened, Amanda dropped her bombs. She played the doorbell camera video on the courtroom screen. The image was clear, undeniable. Brittany striking me. Trevor doing nothing. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Pastor Douglas's face went white. Dorothy covered her mouth. Then, Amanda presented the Texas court records. Brittany's previous attempt to gain control of an elderly mother-in-law's assets. The settlement. The pattern of behavior. Brittany jumped to her feet. Those charges were dropped. That's irrelevant. The judge's voice was ice. Sit down, Mrs. Harrison. I'll determine what's relevant. Amanda called Dr. Foster to testify. The psychiatrist explained clearly that I showed no signs of dementia, that my reactions were appropriate to actual elder abuse, not paranoid delusions. Then Amanda presented the deed. Not just the document, but the full history. Bank records showing Trevor's gambling debts 3 years ago. The creditor threats. The legal transfer of property to protect the house. Trevor's signature on the transfer papers. It's all legitimate, Amanda said. Mrs. Harrison acted to save her family home from her son's creditors. The transfer was legal, proper, and necessary. The judge reviewed everything carefully. Then she called for final statements. Trevor's lawyer tried to salvage the case, but the damage was done. The video had destroyed their credibility. The Texas case showed a pattern. The medical evidence contradicted their claims. When the judge finally spoke, her voice carried disgust. This appears to be a coordinated attempt to exploit an elderly woman, not protect her. I'm denying the guardianship petition. Furthermore, I'm ordering an independent psychiatric evaluation of the competency claims. And I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible investigation of elder abuse and filing false reports. She looked directly at Brittany. Mrs. Harrison, you're extremely fortunate. You're not being charged with assault right now. Mrs. Ina Harrison, I'm granting you an emergency protective order. Brittany Harrison must maintain a distance of 200 feet from you at all times. Then she addressed Trevor. Mr. Harrison, you have 14 days, not 30, to vacate your mother's property. The deed is valid. The house belongs to her. And I suggest you think very carefully about the choices you've made here today. Court adjourned. The silence in the courtroom after the judge's ruling was profound. Then chaos erupted. Pastor Douglas approached me immediately, his face stricken. Ina, I am so deeply sorry. We should have listened to you. We should have believed you. I failed you, and I failed my duty as a shepherd. The church elders followed, apologizing, expressing shock and shame. Dorothy hugged me, crying. I didn't know. I should have trusted you. I should have been braver. I accepted their apologies, though the hurt wouldn't disappear overnight. They'd been deceived, but they'd also been willing to believe the worst about me without real evidence. Outside the courthouse, the scene was different. Brittany was screaming at Trevor in the parking lot, not caring who heard. This is your fault. You, and your pathetic weakness. We could have had everything. Everything. Trevor stood with his head down, taking her verbal assault. When he finally looked up, I saw something break in his expression, something that had been holding him together through all of this. He walked over to where Amanda and I stood by her car. Mom, I don't know how to even begin to apologize. I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd thought I knew. You watched her hit me. You told me to leave my own home. You tried to have me declared incompetent and locked away. An apology doesn't cover that, Trevor. I know. His voice cracked. She convinced me you were sick. She showed me articles about dementia, told me denial was a symptom. I thought I was helping you, but that's no excuse. I should have known. You're my mother. Brittany was still screaming across the parking lot, her mask completely gone now. Several people were filming her on their phones. The sweet, concerned daughter-in-law act had vanished, revealing the vicious, manipulative person underneath. You need to leave her, Trevor, I said quietly. I know. Within 3 days, videos of Brittany's courthouse meltdown had spread across local social media. The community that had rallied around her turned against her just as quickly. People started coming forward with their own stories. Little incidents they'd dismissed before suddenly made sense in context. Then, something unexpected happened. A woman contacted Amanda. Her name was Patricia Morrison, the mother-in-law from Texas. She'd seen the news coverage and wanted to help. Amanda arranged a call. Patricia told me her story. So similar to mine, it was chilling. Brittany had isolated her, manipulated her son Gerald, nearly succeeded in taking everything. The only reason Patricia survived with her assets intact was because she'd had a good lawyer and enough money to fight. There are probably others, Patricia said. She's done this before Texas. I'd bet my life on it. These predators don't suddenly develop their tactics. They refine them over time. Amanda started investigating. Within 2 weeks, she'd found 2 more possible victims. Women in different states whose sons had married Brittany under different names. Women who'd lost homes, savings, autonomy. One had died in a nursing facility, her assets drained. The other had committed suicide. The district attorney took the case seriously. Very seriously. Meanwhile, Trevor filed for divorce. Brittany fought it viciously, but she was also dealing with criminal investigations. The false APS report was a crime. Filing false documents was a crime. The assault captured on video was a crime. Fraud charges were being considered. Trevor moved out of my house on day 10, couldn't stand being there anymore. He found an apartment across town. Brittany stayed until the last possible hour of day 14, and when she finally left, she'd destroyed things. Broken dishes, torn curtains, gouges in the walls, petty, spiteful damage. But it was still my house. I walked through the rooms, seeing the destruction, and felt only relief. I was home. Truly home. And she could never take that from me again. Dorothy and Justin helped me clean and repair. Justin refused any thanks. "Your family," he kept saying, even though I wasn't, not by blood. But he'd made me family through his actions. The church held a special service, not for me, but for themselves. A reckoning with how they'd failed. Pastor Douglas preached about bearing false witness, about the importance of listening to the vulnerable, about not being swayed by appearances. He established new protocols for responding to elder welfare concerns, making sure no one would be silenced the way I'd been. My bank accounts were unfrozen. Patricia worked with me to repair my credit and sort through the financial mess. I discovered I was actually in better shape than before. For years, I'd been quietly supporting Trevor's lifestyle. Nice dinners, car payments, loans that were never repaid. Without that drain, my retirement savings were healthier than I'd realized. Marcus flew in from Arizona, devastated that he'd doubted me. We spent a week together, rebuilding our relationship. He met Justin and Amanda, saw the community that had formed around me. "We're family, Mom. I should have been here. I'll do better." 6 months after the courthouse, Trevor asked to meet me for coffee. We sat in a quiet cafe, both nervous. He'd been in therapy, working through his choices. "I enabled her," he said. "I was weak. I was scared of her. But that's not an excuse. I hurt you in ways I can never fully make right." I looked at my son. I saw genuine remorse, real change beginning. "It won't be the same between us," I told him. "I don't know if it can ever be." "I know, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I agreed to try, slowly, with boundaries, with honesty. It would take years to rebuild trust, if we ever could completely. But he was my son, and despite everything, part of me still loved him. Brittany faced multiple charges. The criminal case was ongoing. Trevor's divorce was finalized. Amanda was working with authorities in other states, building a larger case. There might be justice not just for me, but for other women Brittany had victimized. As for me, I sat on my front porch one evening as summer turned to fall, coffee in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Dorothy came over, bringing homemade cookies. Justin stopped by to fix a loose board on the porch steps. Amanda called to update me on the legal cases. I was surrounded by real love, real community. People who'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. People who'd seen me at my lowest and lifted me up. The house was mine. My money was mine. My life was mine. I'd survived something that could have destroyed me, and I'd come through it not broken, but stronger, wiser, more careful, yes, but not bitter. I'd learned hard lessons about protection and preparation, about the importance of documentation, about building real relationships before crisis hits, about the difference between blood family and chosen family. But most importantly, I'd learned about my own strength. When they'd stripped away everything else, my dignity, my truth, and my will to fight remained. Those things couldn't be taken, only surrendered. And I'd never surrendered. The sun set completely, and stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in my own bed, in my own home, living my own life on my own terms. Tomorrow, I'd have coffee with Dorothy and continue planning the elder advocacy committee the church had asked me to lead. Tomorrow, I'd help other people recognize and escape the kind of abuse I'd endured. Tomorrow was mine. Finally, completely, undeniably mine. And that knowledge, that simple, profound knowledge, filled me with a peace I hadn't felt in longer than I could remember. I smiled in the darkness, remembering that moment in the kitchen when Brittany had demanded I leave, and I'd smiled then too. I'd been smiling because I'd known something she didn't. I'd known I was stronger than she'd ever be, and I'd been right. A year has passed since that courtroom hearing that changed everything. As I sit here today in my living room, the afternoon light streaming through windows I chose, in a house that bears my name alone on the deed, I find myself reflecting on the journey that brought me here. The scars remain, not physical ones, though my cheek still remembers the sting of that slap. The deeper scars are the ones you can't see, the ones that make me more cautious about trust, the ones that wake me sometimes in the middle of the night, remembering how close I came to losing everything. But scars are proof of survival. They're evidence that I faced something terrible and came through it. The Elder Advocacy Committee I chair now meets twice a month. We've helped 11 people in our community recognize and escape similar situations. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, exploitation by family members or caregivers. Each person's story is different, but the patterns are the same. Isolation, gaslighting, systematic destruction of credibility and resources. We've created a network. Lawyers like Amanda, who take pro bono cases. Mental health professionals like Dr. Foster, who understand the difference between actual cognitive decline and the appearance of it under extreme stress. Community members trained to recognize warning signs. We've saved people. Real people with real lives, who might have lost everything if someone hadn't intervened. That's become my purpose. The meaning I've drawn from my pain. Justin finished his law degree last month. He's joining Amanda's firm, specializing in elder law. He credits our experience with shaping his career choice. I attended his graduation, sat in the audience with Dorothy, and cried proud tears. Dorothy and I are closer than ever. She volunteered to be vice chair of the advocacy committee. She's made it her mission to educate other seniors about protecting themselves legally and financially. She says carrying guilt from her moment of doubt motivates her to do better now. I've told her she's forgiven, but she says she's not doing it for forgiveness. She's doing it because it's right. Trevor and I have coffee every Sunday morning. It's become our ritual. The relationship is different now. There's a formality to it, a carefulness. We're learning each other again, like strangers becoming friends. He's done the work in therapy. He's taken responsibility. But trust, once broken so completely, doesn't simply heal. It has to be rebuilt, brick by careful brick. He's doing that work, showing up consistently, being honest, respecting my boundaries. It may never be what it was, but it's becoming something real, if smaller and more guarded. He tells me he still has nightmares about what he almost did, about the moment the judge revealed the truth and he realized how thoroughly he'd been manipulated, about how close he came to destroying his own mother. I tell him we both survived. We're both here. That has to be enough for now. Marcus visits twice a year, bringing his whole family. His kids know the full story now. We've talked about it openly, age-appropriately. They understand that family can hurt you, that love doesn't automatically mean safety, that you have to be wise and careful even with people you trust. It's a hard lesson for children, but I'd rather they learn it from my story than their own painful experience. Brittany is serving 18 months in county jail. The criminal case found her guilty on multiple charges: elder abuse, filing false reports, fraud. Her previous victims testified. The pattern was undeniable. After she's released, she'll be on probation for 5 years. She's been ordered to pay restitution to her victims, though I doubt most of us will ever see that money. The justice isn't in the financial recovery. It's in the fact that she's stopped. She can't do this to anyone else, at least not easily. Trevor's divorce settlement required him to pay me back rent for the 3 years he lived in my house, thinking it was his. I didn't want to take it, but Amanda insisted. You protected that house from his creditors. He benefited from living there. This is fair. I used the money to set up a fund. The Harrison Elder Protection Fund. It provides emergency financial assistance to seniors who've had their accounts frozen or assets stolen while fighting guardianship cases. The kind of help that could have made my battle so much easier if it had existed. The fund is small, but it's growing. Amanda helps administer it. We've already helped 4 people. My health has improved dramatically. The heart issues resolved once the stress lifted. I've lost the weight I'd gained from anxiety and the weight I'd lost from desperation. I sleep through the night now. My blood pressure is normal. My doctor says I'm remarkably healthy for 68 years old. I've started traveling, small trips at first, a week in Charleston, a long weekend in the mountains. Last month, I drove to the Grand Canyon, the trip my husband and I had always planned. I scattered some of his ashes there, told him about everything that had happened, and said goodbye to the life we'd planned together. It was time. I've joined a book club, taken up watercolor painting, adopted a cat named Maisie, who sleeps on my bed and greets me every morning with demanding meows for breakfast. Simple, ordinary pleasures that feel extraordinary because I know how close I came to losing the freedom to enjoy them. The house itself has been transformed. I repainted every room, exercising the memory of Brittany and Trevor living here. I replaced the damaged items, rearranged furniture, made it completely mine. When I walk through these rooms now, I don't see ghosts. I see home. Pastor Douglas and I have had many long conversations about faith, about justice, about the responsibility of religious communities to protect the vulnerable. He's become an ally, using his position to educate other clergy about elder abuse. The church has implemented new policies, new training, new awareness. He officiates at the advocacy committee meetings sometimes, offering prayers and spiritual support for people going through their own battles. He tells me he sees it as penance and purpose combined. I've forgiven him and the others who doubted me. Forgiveness wasn't instant. It took time, required conversations, demanded accountability. But holding on to that anger was poisoning me, and I'd already been poisoned enough. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't saying what happened was okay. It's saying, I won't let what happened continue to hurt me. It's releasing the people who hurt you from the debt they owe, not because the debt isn't real, but because collecting it costs too much of your own life. I carry my story carefully now. I share it when it can help others, but I don't let it define me. I'm not a victim. I'm not even just a survivor. I'm a woman who has lived a full life, who has faced challenges and overcome them, who has loved and lost and loved again. The experience with Brittany is one chapter. A significant one, a painful one, but still just one chapter in a much longer story. I think about that moment in my kitchen, the one that started everything. When Brittany demanded money I didn't have for a party I wouldn't fund. When her hand struck my face and my world tilted. When my son chose her over me and I smiled because I'd been expecting it. I smile now for different reasons. Not because I anticipated the battle, though I did. Not because I had a plan, though I did. I smile because I know myself now in a way I didn't before. I know my strength, my resilience, my capacity to endure and fight and ultimately prevail. Those things were tested in fire, and they didn't break. I know the difference between people who love me and people who claim to, between community and performance, between help and control. I know that being prepared isn't paranoid, that protecting yourself is wisdom, that documentation saves lives, that asking for help is courage, not weakness. I know that systems can fail you, that even good people can be deceived, that justice isn't automatic, it's fought for. That truth doesn't always win, but it won this time, and that matters. Most importantly, I know that your dignity, your truth, and your will to fight cannot be taken from you. They can only be surrendered, and I will never surrender them again. As I finish writing this, the sun is setting again. Another day lived on my terms. Another evening in my home. Another night of peaceful sleep ahead. Maisie jumps onto my lap, purring. Dorothy is coming over in an hour for dinner. Justin texted that he passed the bar exam. Amanda called with news that our advocacy committee has been asked to present at a statewide conference. Life is good. Not perfect, not unmarked by what happened, but good. Rich, full, mine. They tried to take everything from me. My home, my dignity, my freedom, my very sanity. But they failed. Not because I was lucky, though I had help when I needed it most. Not because the system worked, though eventually it did. They failed because I refused to let them win. I fought. Even when fighting seemed hopeless, I fought. Even when everyone believed them instead of me, I held on to my truth. Even when I was at my lowest, broke and alone in a motel room, I didn't give up. That's the lesson I share now with everyone who comes to our advocacy committee meetings. With every person fighting their own battle against exploitation and abuse. With anyone who's ever felt powerless in the face of manipulation and cruelty. You are stronger than you know. Your truth matters. Your dignity is yours alone. And you have the right, the absolute right, to fight for yourself and your future. Sometimes you'll need help. Accept it. Sometimes you'll need to be strategic. Be smart. Sometimes you'll need to document everything. Do it. Sometimes you'll need to believe in yourself when no one else does. Find that strength, because in the end, that's what saved me. Not the lawyer or the evidence or the judge's ruling, though those were all crucial. What saved me was that core belief, even in my darkest moments, that I deserved better, that I wasn't crazy, that my life and my autonomy mattered. I held on to that when I had nothing else to hold on to, and it was enough to keep me fighting until help arrived. So, to anyone listening who's in a similar situation, who's being gaslighted or manipulated or systematically destroyed by someone they trusted, hear me. You're not alone. You're not crazy. What you're experiencing is real, and you can survive this. Reach out, document everything, trust your instincts, protect yourself legally and financially. Build a network of people who truly see you, and never, ever stop fighting for your truth. Because your life, your freedom, your dignity are worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. I'm living proof that even when the battle seems hopeless, even when you've lost everything, you can still win. You can still reclaim your life. You can still find peace and purpose and joy on the other side of trauma. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, but it's possible. I promise you, it's possible. And when you get to the other side, when you're sitting in your own space, living your own life, surrounded by people who genuinely love you, you'll understand what I understand now. Every moment of the fight was worth it. Every tear, every struggle, every dark night of despair was worth it to arrive here. Free, safe, home. That's my story. That's my testimony. That's my gift to anyone who needs to hear it. You can survive this. You can prevail. You are stronger than you know. Now I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you love ever experienced manipulation or exploitation by family members? How did you recognize it? What helped you fight back or escape? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with others who might benefit from hearing it. You never know who in your life might be quietly suffering, who might need to know they're not alone and there's a way forward. And please subscribe to this channel for more stories of survival, strength, and the human capacity to overcome even the darkest challenges. Every subscription helps us reach more people who need to hear these messages of hope. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for caring about these issues and the real people behind them. May you always have the courage to stand up for yourself, the wisdom to recognize manipulation, and the strength to fight for the life you deserve. May you be surrounded by people who truly see you, support you, and celebrate your victories. And may you never forget your own worth, your own power, and your own incredible capacity to survive and thrive. Be well, be strong, be safe. And remember, you're never as alone as you feel.